I know that morons exist, but it begins to concern me when they try and raise kids. I'm going to tell you some stories, and they'll be of what's happened to me in the short year-ish that I've been in San Francisco. I've talked to other mothers, and it's happened to them as well, and these are not exceptions. I take my kid to the park 4 to 5 times a week, and it happens quite often. Now, my philosophy when I take my son to a child-specific place is I do not intervene, or I am actually playing with him and all his little friends. When I'm not intervening, I am just there, and I look up from my book once in a while to see if he's still there. And unless there is violence, which in the context of a 1 and 2-year-old, I guess hitting someone with a toy or real hard pushing, I don't do anything. And guess what? It's still never happened. Generally, 1 to 2-year-olds are not violent. Even when I'm participating with him and playing with everyone, I also don't intervene. I let them work it out and continue playing. Sometimes I will make suggestions, but it's never take child away because something may have happened. These things are usually a kid takes a toy, or like there's a little bit of a push, or they want to be in the same space as another child. 9 times out of 10, they work it out, and often they play a little bit better in the moments afterwards. Basically, I don't intervene. Why? Because play isn't for fun. Fun is a side effect of play, but play is how they learn to interact in the world. That's how they learn empathy, how they're socialized, how they navigate between their social peers, how they discover that some people are like this and other people are like this. And this is how you navigate these kinds of people, and this is how you navigate these kinds of people. All mammals play. Play is food for the brain. It's not for just fun. You take your kid to the park. You don't take him to the park so that you can push him on the swing. Like, that defeats the purpose. Yeah, they're having fun. They're learning absolutely nothing. Playgrounds are not for adults. Playgrounds are for children to participate in social activities together, to push each other's limits, to understand how their peers may feel when they do something wrong. If a parent intervenes every time there's an interaction between 2 children, what that child learns is, Mommy thinks I should do this. They don't learn that if I do this, my peers won't like me anymore. Or if I do this, my peers will like me more. They don't actually experience the world if you're hovering over them like a sociopath, monitoring every decision. So the first story is I'm at the Science Museum for Kids, and they have all the stuff and buttons and little displays of how physics work. So my son is pushing a button, and a kid smaller than him even, runs up behind him and gives him a big hug. And I see this and I'm like, that's amazing. It's really cute. Seconds later, the father runs up to his son, grabs him off of my son. They're still hugging. Grabs him off of my son. My son wasn't displaying discomfort. My son wasn't upset or pushing him away. My son was just like, oh, a hug. Anyways, dad grabs his son off of my son, finds me, and profusely apologizes. I'm like, your son didn't punch him in the face. Like, why are you apologizing? And then the father got offended that I didn't agree with his parenting decision. Okay, God forbid there's an unsolicited hug. Bring out the consent forms for the toddlers.
Oh my god, it's actually a thing. Comments disabled for this video, of course.
The second story happened at a birthday party I was attending. It was an outdoor birthday party at a public park, and they had kind of a segment where they put food and like 20 balls and all their toys. And as I was leaving the birthday party a little bit early, we witnessed this father standing over his 6-year-old going, "We do not play with kids that we didn't come here with." The son is crying and whimpering, and all he wanted to do was to go play with the children and with the toys at the birthday party I was at. And it was so shocking and sad because I know the mom. She would not have cared if another kid joined us. And what that father's concern was only for himself, because God forbid I have to interact with another adult, with another parent of a child I don't know, to say, oh, my child's playing at your birthday party, is that okay? It's like these parents, they have their own weird psychological issues, and then they put them onto their kids because they're uncomfortable. It was just so psychotic to me and so sad. The last story happened to me yesterday. I was at a park and I was letting my child play, and there was a woman with a little girl. She may have been a few months younger than my son, and she was on her belly swinging on the swings. And my son had been trying to, when adults push a child on the swings, he was trying to do that to a baby, and the baby was in one of those, secured swings, so it was really, really cute that he was trying to do that. And then he comes over to her, and he tries to push her on the swing like her mother was. The mother doesn't like that, which is weird to begin with, fine. So, I don't know what goes on in his head. Maybe he's like, oh, if she doesn't want me to push her, maybe I can be pushed. So he tries to get on the swing. And he goes and he gets in her space and tries to get in on the swing with her. And the woman, first of all, I'm 4 feet away looking at this. I have a carrot in my hand. I was about to bring a carrot for my son. So I'm just standing there looking straight at it, at the situation, and seeing how they're going to resolve it. The woman looks at me just so excited for the opportunity to, sock it to me, to give me a little lecture about how bad of a mother I am. And she goes, your child is pushing my child? Take your child away. And I just keep standing there and I go, I'm trying to see what's going to happen. And she's like, you're not paying attention. I was paying attention. I walk up to her at this point and I say, I was paying attention. I was literally looking at both of our children. She goes, this is inappropriate behavior. Fucking moron, he's 2 years old. Of course it's inappropriate behavior. Everything a 2-year-old does is inappropriate. That's why you bring him to a place with other kids, so they learn what appropriate and inappropriate is. God forbid a child has an experience outside of the safe zone of its parent. This woman was just hovering over her child the entire time. And it was so, I felt the vibes from her leading up to that moment for about 10 minutes. Because I was chilling and reading my book. My kid was running around playing with all the other kids. And her child is sheltered under her motherly wings. And I think maybe some parents think that I'm really young or inexperienced or silly, and that they could lecture me and take out their anger on me. And then when I give 0 fucks, they're like, what do I do now? So what happened was I moved him over because she was obviously being very aggressive and weird about it. I moved him over to the swing next to them and just swung him on the swing, and he was flying off the swing and jumping in the sand, wiping out and coming back up on the swing. We were having so much fun. And it made her feel so awkward that she left. She removed herself from the park because another mom didn't crumble in submission to her request. And I'm not against coming in and making a suggestion hey, why don't you give him that truck and you can play with that one instead for now. It's the physical intervention that I'm against. I don't mind a little bit of guidance, especially when they're that young. I understand that that's totally fine and normal. And I mean, in that situation, if she really just wanted to be with just her daughter and didn't want anyone around her, okay, then look at me and laugh oh, I guess your son wants to swing, and I'll be oh yeah, kids. And then I would have felt that vibe where she's I kind of just want to swing my daughter here, and I would have come and taken him away. No problem. Instead, she made it this aggressive situation. I guess it's a sheltered woman sheltering her kid, and fine, but I feel bad for the kid, because when my son went over there, her daughter wasn't upset or crying or mad. She was trying to, she was in the moment interacting with him. And not one time have I been offended. Not one time when a bigger kid comes up to my son and yanks a toy out of his hand or pushes him. Not once. You know what my child does? If the child is bigger than him, my son knows that the child is bigger, so he doesn't do a scuffle. He'll kind of stand back and let it play out and observe the kid as he leaves. If the child is his size or smaller, my son will usually try to retain the toy or retain the space he's occupying, and one of them will win. And they move on. And sometimes they sit down and play together, and sometimes they don't. And it's a great learning experience for him because he understands that if a child is bigger, you probably don't want to pick a fight with them right now, or if a child is acting in a mean way. First of all, there's no mean or nice with 2-year-olds. They are impulsive and reactive, and they're testing limits. They're not like, I'm gonna be mean now, push. They're just reacting to their environment. They're still learning. Their brain is this small. So that's a concept that's just ridiculous. Like, these parents think that, oh, your child pushed my child, therefore your child is mean, therefore you're a bad parent. Like, no, every child's pushed another child doesn't make them a bad person. They're still developing. Anyway, so my son just observes if an older kid is being mean or, getting in a space. My child steps back and observes them and like sees what happens. And if you don't let your children do that, they won't know how to react to this in the future. Like, imagine this woman's child if she continues to act this way with her. Imagine her, and then she's going to send her to public school, right? She's going to be eaten alive. She's going to get a mean Facebook post and like kill herself. Like, I know I'm being extreme, but I find that sheltered kids, this is the results. They become very anxious and depressed. Kids, and there are studies to back this up, kids that don't participate in free play, like unsupervised play with their peers, they grow up to have a propensity to depression and anxiety. And this is on the rise from like about the 50s. Kids like this are being raised in the safe zone of their parents' watchful eye. And then they try to go to university or a workplace, and they don't have that safe zone anymore. Oh wait, no, they do now. Universities took care of them. Good solution. Anyways, to reiterate my point, kids need to play with each other without parents hovering over them. Because when your child has a situation that they need to manage and navigate themselves, then they learn. And if your child is a mean child, like once they're a little bit older and they act mean and rude and aggressive, they need to learn from their peers that that's inappropriate. They need to learn that the kids they're trying to play with won't play with them eventually if that's how they act in a repetitive way. If your mommy flies in and goes, be nice to the kids, don't do that, that's mean. You know what that's teaching your kid? Oh, mommy doesn't want me to act like this. That doesn't really teach them anything. They need to see the consequence of being isolated by their peers if they're being mean. They're not going to see the consequence if you come and adjust their behavior every single moment. I've seen the result of stuff like this. There's been a few instances where my son or I observe another child trying to play with the kid, and these kids are usually 6 to 8 years old, and the child will run up to them, try to play with them, and they are like disgusted, like they don't want to play with the kid. They run back to their parents and they only want to participate in interacting with their parents. And the parents are always really embarrassed when this happens because it's not normal behavior. When your 7-year-old doesn't know how to handle like a 4-year-old running up to them, that's not normal. And the parents are embarrassed, but then they still reinforce the behavior by continuing to play with their kid instead of being like, hey man, you're 6 years old. Go make a friend. I'm gonna go over here and like catch up on my emails. These kind of kids never learned how to play with other kids. It's really, really sad. There's also a bigger problem with age groups. A lot of kids don't know how to interact with kids outside of their age group. Now, where I don't see this problem is a church. Church kids generally know how to interact with all ages. It's maybe because they have bigger families or their attitude is a little bit more old school about like free play. But yeah, and also because I'm in San Francisco, there's a big Hispanic community, and I actually try to go to the more Hispanic populated parks because Mexican people have big families and they're like way more chill, and all the kids know how to play with different aged kids. And I've never once had an issue with a Hispanic mom or dad, ever. They just let their kids roam. It's really, really nice. And My son generally, like, I know this has been a negative video, but my son generally, we go to a park and he'll make a friend or two, and they're usually 3 or 4 years older. And I suspect it's the kids that are the youngest in the family, and now they get a little brother for like a few hours, so they love it. And he runs around with them, and it's great. So, like, there are really positive experiences still, but the bad ones obviously stand out, and they're frequent enough to warrant this insane rant on YouTube, even though I'm not YouTubing anymore. Anyways, remember, your children are not your projects. They are autonomous little human beings. Let them be themselves. They can't even be themselves yet. Let them discover themselves. Because they won't have a sense of self if they can't navigate anything around them. Like, it's so depressing. Before I go, I just want to give you a quick update. I am filming a documentary on subjects like this, also including topics like screen time and how it may or may not affect this new generation of children. So if you want to contribute to that, my Patreon is linked below. And I want to end on a good note. So here's a video of my son playing really, really nicely with some kids. Bye-bye.